In November of 2023, I took a trip to Germany with my wife Annette. Annette did a great deal of the planning for the trip. An idea of what you want to do and how you're going to commute is important. Annette and I flew from Boston to Berlin. That was where our adventure began. We were tired after our arrival into Berlin. We bought our train tickets at the airport, activated them at the train station, and took the train from there to our hotel. The train let us off and we made our way to our hotel room. Monday was the day we arrived in Berlin and soon realized how many restaurants are closed on Mondays. We found an Italian restaurant a couple blocks away and took a walk to it. While there we enjoyed our meals and the service. Us studying pre-trip told us how to tip 10% of the bill and always tip in cash. We had a beautiful sunrise the next morning. One of the key decisions of us choosing this hotel was the transit system. Our first full day in Berlin started with a walking tour that lasted about 3.5 hours. We met Hackischer Markt outside the Starbucks, and the tour guide had lived in several countries all over the world. And since he lived in Boston while going to college, he had his Red Sox cap on during the tour. We went to Museum Island. You don't realize it is an island at first, but the Spree River splits and goes around the east and west side of the island. Besides several beautiful museums on the island, it also holds the Berlin Cathedral, which completed in 1905 and had to be repaired following the damage from World War II. The artwork all along the whole cathedral is amazing. The Golden Cross found at the top of the Berlin Dome could be seen from many areas throughout downtown Berlin. Off of Unter den Linden, the boulevard that runs from Museum Island to Parisar Island, we stopped at the book burning memorial at Bebelplatz, formerly known as the Opera Square. In 1933, more than 20,000 un-German books were taken from the library shelves of Humboldt University and set on fire by the Nazis. We made our way to Checkpoint Charlie. It was the best-known crossing point between West and East Berlin during the Cold War. They have bricks that run along the sidewalk symbolizing where the Berlin Wall once stood. The plaques on these bricks are red from the West Berlin side. As we went along with the tour, we saw sections from the Berlin Wall that remained standing. At first glance, one might think the wall wasn't too big of an obstacle. However, there are two walls separated by a big area with multiple layers of razor wire and Russian soldiers on the alert. We stopped inside a German memorial. It shows a mother holding her dead son, and the words written below these statues, when translated, read, "To the victims of wars and of the rule of violence." The sculpture was made at the end of the 1930s. After that, we made our way to the Führerbunker, where Adolf Hitler shot himself after it became clear that Germany would lose the Battle of Berlin. The bunker was filled in, and this sign is all that marks this location. We walked through the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. This memorial opened in May of 2005. The rectangular blocks look identical if you look from far above, but walking between them you see how they are all different heights and the base at different depths. The further you move in, they seem to get closer to you. People translate these stones into different ways. Some feel that having them look them same from a distance is similar to 6 million Jews being murdered, just a number. But when you get too close, you see that each of the stones, like each of the Jews that were killed, is unique. This stop was very, very moving. For the final stop of the tour, we went to Brandenburg Gates. This is one of the best-known landmarks of Germany. There are embassy buildings from several countries located there, including the US and Britain. Hotel Adlon is here. Many rich and famous people have stayed here, and is where Michael Jackson dangled one of his babies out the window to show his fans. Also at this Brandenburg Gate, that's where there was graffiti done recently on the columns there. And we went there while they were cleaning up the graffiti. You could still see some of it on the columns. After the tour, we went to Topography of Terror, which tells the story of the Nazis from their rise to power to post-World War II trials. Throughout the city, bike paths are rarely labeled, but need to be acknowledged for one's safety. The sewer caps had a neat design on them. Berliner Wasserbestraße handles the water supply and wastewater disposal in Berlin. It was nice seeing these images of famous Berlin structures as we walked through the city. This building is one of the few remaining examples of the Nazi architecture. There were swastikas above the large windows, but they were covered over after the war. It became the East German House of Ministries, and after reunification of the Ministry of Finance, Soviet-era mural on the bottom of the finance building showing everyone working happily under communism. In Berlin, they have the Berlin Buddy Bears, used to enforce a peaceful coexistence of people of the different religions, cultures, and origins. They promote peace and tolerance around the globe. And on the Berlin flag, it has a bear on there also. Took it a little slower following yesterday. Rode some trams. They have a great tram system put here, but some difficulty trying to find a map of the tram routes. The trams run on tram-dedicated rails, roadways also used by vehicles, and through pedestrian areas. We also took trains to different places. The U-Bahn is the underground railway, like the subway system in the United States. The S-Bahn is like the commuter rails. We took the tram to the Berlin Wall Memorial. Part of the Berlin Wall ran along Bernauer Strasse. They have an artistic display of bars from an area that the wall stood, along with several other pieces of information. We then wandered around Alexanderplatz, where we saw the world clock. 148 major cities from around the world are listed in the numbers representing the 24 time zones rotate throughout the day, allowing one to know the time in each city. Then we hopped the U-Bahn to Museum Island. Museum Island's train station has a really cool starry ceiling. We were headed for the DDR Museum, but after seeing the long line, we decided to hop on a bus to Reichstag for our 3:30 reservation. Since we had time to kill, we found a German restaurant that wasn't too far of a walk and had a nice relaxing lunch. The Reichstag is where the German parliament meets, and on the top is a large glass dome visitors see the Berlin cityscape from. At the Reichstag, I walked the ramp within the dome while listening to the narration through the headset I was given outside of the elevator we rode to the top. From the dome, we saw many of the sights that we previously saw from the street during our tour. The narration was selected based on the area you were at while walking the spiral ramp that circled around the inside of the dome. After the touring of the dome, we went on the platform to watch the sunset that we had been looking forward to. However, due to the clouds that we experienced on most of our trip, we were unable to see the sun or even guess where it was. We hopped on the bus to Zoo Station. The zoo was already closed, but we walked by the Kaiser Wilhelm Church, a Protestant church that was built starting in 1891. After that, we made our way to Cathay Wohlfahrt, a Christmas store that was created in 1964, starting from music boxes. Outside of the store, we saw several Buddy Bears with different messages on them. Inside was paradise for anyone who enjoys Christmas decorations. Ended the evening at a Croatian restaurant. I'd never eaten Croatian food before, and the food at this restaurant was the best Croatian food I have ever had. Ned's father was in the U.S. Army, and his parents lived in West Berlin for 4 years, from 1964 to 1968. The location was known as the Berlin Brigade Housing Authority. This was the location of our next adventure. After leaving the train station, we hopped on a bus and found the street she lived on. After exploring down the street, we actually found the apartment building she lived in. The U.S. Army had families staying in these apartment buildings. We went to the apartment that her and her older sister lived in until they were 2 and 3 years old. While sharing the photos with Annette's mother, she opened up about how happy she was living there. There was a 5th floor added to the building since they lived there, plus several other changes. Although Annette can't remember living there, she was quite happy to see it and shared the photos with her mother. After visiting the apartment building, we took a walk to the museum that was added to where the base once stood. There is an old movie theater next door, and Annette's mother recalls frequenting it while there. We ended the day at a Christmas fair. We were expecting many Christmas items being sold, but it was mostly a carnival with rides, food, and drinks. We tried a couple of different foods and drinks and saw several of the rides. All kinds of different foods. We ordered a bowl of cooked mushrooms with a white sauce on top that tasted very yummy. Another stop was where we tried some crepe. Messy for the fingers, but also yummy. The day we departed, we woke up very early, made our way to the main train station, and waited for our next adventure into Frankfurt. More stories to come.